Hi there, I'm Eric Wordweaver Sjerven, Goldie of the Ridgar folk here in East Texas, and I'd like to welcome you to the Raven's Call. This is a show where I ramble on about different heathen-related subjects, just whatever crosses my mind at the time. So, before we get started, I want to go ahead and throw out some of the business-related stuff that I usually do at the end. Just going to knock it out here real fast. Down in the description below, you'll see the different contact information that you can reach me at. There's Facebook, email, stuff like that, Saraha. Check it out. Give me some feedback. Love to hear what you guys think. I take a lot of viewer requests, which today's episode is going to be one. And so jump down there, give me some contact, some feedback. Let me know what you guys think. All right. Also, please hit like on the videos. It helps a lot in getting the videos out there to people who like them and want to see them. I know there's a lot of people that this isn't necessarily their cup of tea. It's starting to end up in front of some of those people. I've noticed a lot more thumbs down. But we have a much higher rate of thumbs up. So hope you guys are digging it. Please hit that thumbs up button, hit subscribe, hit the bell so you stay up to date, and you won't miss anything in the world of the Raven's Call, Weaving Words Productions. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump into today's subject. And for today, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about one of the viewer requests that we had called in. I've got a number of these that are sitting in my inbox, so I'm going to knock a few of these out. We will get back to the runes. I promise we'll get there. Stay tuned to the channel and you'll see those. But today's request was for children in ritual, and how do we work with that? This is something that I find very interesting because I've worked a lot with kids in different settings, and it's something that's near and dear to my heart. For those of you who have followed the channel for a little bit, you will have realized that I run a boys' home. We take care of CPS kids. It's actually an emergency care shelter for those kids that are between placements. And so kids are near and dear to my heart. Don't have any myself. That's just turns of fate, weird the way that it works. But I have tons here at work and have worked extensively with the kids that have been either in the tribe or tied to us through folk community. Kids have always been something that I've been near and dear to my heart, that I work with a lot. So when it comes to ritual, that's always an area where I see people having questions. How do you work kids in? Do you work kids in? What's appropriate for kids? And I'm going to tell you right now, what's appropriate to the kids is entirely relative to your kids. It's going to depend heavily on the maturity level, the interest level for your kids, and things like that. As far as the should you or should you not involve kids in ritual, I'm going to say yes, definitely involve kids in ritual at just about any age. We'll touch on the age thing here in just a little bit, but first off, my concept as to why it's important to involve kids in a ritual. A lot of parents are afraid to work kids into ritual because they feel like they're pushing their religion on children. And a lot of people that write into the channel, and a lot of newbie heathens in general, have got a lot of baggage from bad run-ins with religion in the past. And religion's not a bad word. I actually kind of intend to do a video on that subject in and of itself. But religion's not a bad word. It is not indoctrinating kids into your way of thinking. It's not stifling their creative growth. By including children in religion, in your culture, because it's more than just religion, it's culture. You're talking about tribal culture, you're talking about kindred culture, whatever it is that you build your world around. Children are the next generation of that. And it's very important to be able to imbue these children with this tradition, with this understanding of why you do things, not just how you do them, but why you do them. And it's important to work kids in from an early age so they get to see that, they get to experience that. Because they're going to get a lot from the outside world that's constantly feeding them that religion's a bad thing, that it leads to hatred and division, as some of you have probably experienced. It doesn't have to be that way. Essentially, when it comes down to working kids into religion, what you're doing is you're teaching them the way that you see the world. You're teaching them how to do the things that matter the most to you as a parent. And that's the way they will see it if they are kept at arm's reach, if they're not involved in ritual, if they're not involved in festivals. What you're going to end up with is them seeing it as other, as opposed to them being part of the inclusive whole that is your heathenry. So yes, by all means, include the kids. Use it to teach them. Use it to guide them, to help build tradition, values, morals, all of that. And again, we're coming back to the age part. I don't see a young cutoff for involving kids in rituals, but I do think it varies according to that child's maturity level and what they can handle. Some kids, especially the younger ones, are not going to be particularly interested in sitting through Sumbel. They're not going to be particularly interested in maintaining the focus that is necessary for a bloat. Even if it's a short bloat, it's still going to require concentration and involvement that they may not just particularly be interested in. There are some ways to make it interesting for them. When we've worked with kids in the past, I have taken, usually these are school-age children that are moderately interested, mostly to see what mommy and daddy are doing. Some of them get kind of wrangled into it. And sitting through a regular, everyday bloat that we might do as adults can be kind of boring for them. So usually when I've got kids involved, I take a little extra time in my bloat to do some teaching, maybe work some storytelling and things like that. But I like to make it lively, I like to make it involved, and I like for them to be a part of it. Holding ritual bowls, helping with the sprig, the thyme, the evergreen sprig that you use to sprinkle the mead or whatever liquid offering you might be using in that instance. You might have, if their age appropriate maturity level can handle it, help build the ritual fire. Help decorate the vey, hof, altar, whatever it is that you utilize for your particular offerings and whatnot. I love to have this kind of stuff go down. I love to come out and maybe have them do decorations, like for winter nights. A lot of times we'll do painted pumpkins or carved pumpkins, depending on which kids we've got and how much time we've got, what the weather's like, and utilize those as decorations in the vey to add an air of this is winter nights to our ritual. It's a lot of fun and it's something the kids enjoy. And then when ritual comes around, and if you bless the jack-o'-lanterns for luck and protection for the families that they can then take home and set on their stoop, they're taking home a piece of that ritual. They're taking home a very physical manifestation of what is the key there. It's that totem, that talisman, and they get to hold it, they get to see it, they get to be hands-on with it. So we're going to venture a little into the realm of psychology. Children operate on a concrete level. A lot of times they will mimic enough that it makes it look like they can understand more abstract concepts, and some kids can at an early age, depending on their individual developmental progress. But ultimately speaking, a vast majority of kids up until the early preteen age very much operate within concrete bounds. The ability to comprehend abstract thought doesn't usually kick in until early teens, in that adolescent phase when it starts to kick in. The dendrites in the brain that function and manage abstract thought just don't really turn on until then. And developmentally, there's a reason for that, because they're learning the concrete skills they need to be able to operate in Midgard around them. And then about the time that they become young adults, their brains just explode with abstract thought and the ability to understand the why, to think outside of themselves. So what you can do with a younger child versus a teenager are very different. I find that when you're dealing with younger children, you need to keep that concreteness in mind. They're not going to understand the fullness of the gods when you sit down to do a bloat. They'll understand that we're giving offerings to the gods, but to them, they're just very, very literal, very big beings in the sky kind of thing. They don't get energy workings. They don't necessarily understand the philosophy behind sacrifice, but they do understand gifting. If you go back and watch my video on Julefather, which my ideas and understanding of that have developed since I've done that. I may do another Julefather video in the future, exploring some more elaborate Yule kind of traditions. But I see very much that concrete example of gifting and a clear correlation between actions and deeds and worth, value. When you have a kid that behaves well, and I'll revisit all of this towards Yule, but when you have a kid that behaves well and they understand, they make that correlation between good behavior and the recognition that comes from that. For them, it's going to be very concrete. It's going to be, I'm good, I get a present. But that lays the groundwork for the abstract thought that comes in later. If they're used to that kind of gifting cycle, especially the giving offering to the Yule Father, in gift for gift, Yule Father brings gifts and they give gift in kind by giving the milk and cookies, by putting reindeer food out if you do the reindeer thing, or feed for Sleipnir. Depends on the particular aesthetic that you use for Yule Father. But what they learn is the physical, concrete aspect of gifting. And then later on, they learn the abstract reasoning behind gifting and how that actually applies person to person and not just in that Yule Father kind of setting. And that's something that is a practical way to explore something that's more complicated and beyond their developmental level. Ritual is the same way. When you work a child into ritual, they learn the physical aspect of what you're doing. They learn that you are giving a gift to the gods, and they may not necessarily understand a gift in return in an abstract form such as luck. That's something that we as adults can understand. And for most of us, we spend quite a bit of time contemplating and exploring what is luck. How does luck work into the world? It's a complicated thing. And it's not necessarily something that a child is going to pick up on immediately. They can learn some of the more concrete elements of luck, things go well, etc., but you're asking for a long game kind of thing there. And most children are not going to pick up on that at the age of 7 or 8. It's just probably not going to play out that way. But if you can work in a physicality element to the ritual, where they get to take home something and they think of it as a lucky charm, this is a protector for the house, like the jack-o'-lantern. Or if you use like beads, I've used beads before where we make beaded necklaces. And, we know that those are blessed in the ritual and are gifted with the luck that the gods impart upon us. That is something they can physically take with them. They can wear it. They can say, this is cool. This is my heathen necklace. I got this for winter nights. I got this for this, and they will begin to understand over time the complexities of gifting. But in the immediateness of the now, what they are learning is the physical process of bloat, how to do it right, what kind of things might be involved, what it looks like, what it feels like. And they get to experience the physical element of ritual. They get to experience a lot of the feelings, a lot of the flow, things like that. And a well-done ritual that's interesting and engaging and will keep them in can help to foster those feelings that they will continue to seek as adults. Now, I like to use, like I said, beads. We've done jack-o'-lanterns. I especially like to work the kids in with gifting to the Vetir. That's a lot of fun, because when we go down to the vase, sometimes what we'll do is we'll gather like bird seeds and things like that, things that are good for the Vetir, that are good for the animals that live in the area. And I'll have a bowl full of this that we'll bless and we'll give out as gift for the Vetir. And we'll have the kids all come up and gather a handful and run out, and I'll have them yell, "Hail Vetir," or "Hail the Land Wights," or "Hail the Spirits," whatever works, and have them just chunk it out into the woods. They love it. They love the throwing. They love the doing. They love the involvement, because it's physical. It's concrete. It's something that's hands-on. They're physically giving a gift. And it won't be until later that they really understand why, but they'll be going through the motions. They'll be getting the beginnings, the groundwork that will build into more in-depth understanding in the future. If it's fun, then it's something that they will want to participate in. Now, naturally, if mom and dad, or mom and mom, or dad, however, it's whatever that particular family unit's like, mom by herself, dad by himself, whatever it may be, in a ritual, a lot of times children will feed off of the seriousness of a ritual and be engaged, even though they don't necessarily understand why. They'll be in the situation, they'll go, we're supposed to be serious now. I don't really understand why we're supposed to be serious now, but we're supposed to be serious now. And I haven't had too many experiences where kids just too rambunctious for ritual. It does happen. I can think of a couple of kids right now in the folk community that would have a hard time sitting still for ritual. So involving them in bloat is not as appropriate for them, maturity level wise. They're not really ready to be involved in that kind of a structure. So for kids like that, we do different things. We still do like the Vatier gifting, where they get to chunk the Vatier candies, the birdseed, things like that, or put out ears of corn for the squirrels, stuff like that. They enjoy that. They enjoy the drawing on the rocks for ritual, and it gives an added element to those decorations, because then it's not just aesthetics and trappings, it's the energy of the children, it's the energy of the next generation feeding into the ritual. They're a part of it, they're hands-on, they're there, physically putting pieces of themselves into that which we all are engaging in. And it makes the ritual that much more powerful. So again, base it on the developmental level and maturity level of the children at play. If a kid's too rambunctious, well then, typically at festival, we usually have some individuals that are not heathen per se, family members that come out and want to be a part of the festival, but don't want to participate in the religious elements. And so they'll watch the kids while the kids play, the ones that aren't going to be part of the ritual itself, and the rest of us will go down and do the ritual. Similarly, if a kid is in ritual and they start to lose focus, it's okay. There's a glorious element to a child at play while the family is doing ritual. It's not something to be bothered by. The laughter of a child is a magical thing. And so if they get bored and they want to sit in the dirt and play, okay, that's fine, because they're still there. They're still part of it. They're still being themselves while all of this is going on around them. And it begins to normalize the behavior for them. They get to see ritual taking place. They get to see mommy and daddy, whatever, doing ritual, being part of this thing, and it will imprint a memory. And after a while, they may show interest in it. They may not. One of the things that I find is that you can't force a child to engage in and be, you can't force a kid to be heathen. You can imbue them with all of the knowledge and instill all the traditions that you want. They're going to find their own path and they're going to walk it. If you make it fun and you make it inviting, they're more likely to come back and give it an actual exploration when the time comes. If you make it stodgy, boring, and something that they don't understand, constantly talking over their heads, they're not as likely to come back. They're going to want to wander off into things that do catch their interest. Traditions that are more physical and involved, flashy, new, especially when it comes to teenagers. You get a lot of teenagers that want to be other, because that abstract thought is now kicking in and they're capable of thinking about things outside of simply themselves. So what you'll end up with in teenagers is a rebellion against the established norm. This is normal. This is children figuring themselves out. This is kids exploring their own sense of self at the first moment that they're actually able to fully grasp that. Not to mention, when you get an explosion of dendrites like that in the brain, when that whole area kicks on, they think they know everything. And this is normal. This is understandable because they're experiencing something they've never experienced before. It won't be for another 10 years that they suddenly realize, oh, I don't know everything and I wish I'd paid more attention back when mom and dad were trying to show me something. So it's important to get the mechanics ingrained and then worry about the whys and stuff as they're able to understand it. If you're having to teach the how and the why at the same time, things get a little muddier. They're a little less likely to want to go with tradition. They're going to want to throw in their own thing. And that's a beautiful thing. Having kids bring their own twist to a ritual, their own little additions, can be very, very powerful in building a good ritual. It can be building the hearth culture of that particular family unit, that tribe, and things will grow out of it that are unique to that tribe, unique to that family. This is a good thing. This is heathenry. Where I differ from some of the other kind of traditions within heathenry is that I see heathenry as a living, growing thing, a living, breathing thing. And so I like to see innovation. I like to see new ways to look at ritual, new things that you can do in ritual, in festival, that bring in the mind of the child, because they see the world in a way that we don't. Yeah, we understand the complexities of Gefrain. We understand Weird and Orlog. They're not going to get this per se early on. These are concepts that are better taught in the adolescent phase and early adulthood. Younger kids, you're not going to sit here and have a long, drawn-out conversation with younger kids on Weird, but you will be able to impart some of the cause and effect natures of heathenry. That, good things beget good things. And one of the ways that I like to do that, to give some specifics, and something I like to work into my festivals, is that of storytelling. Because kids love storytelling, especially if you've got a good storyteller who really knows how to work a crowd and knows how to weave that spell. I've been working on my own saga, the saga of Bjorn Thorolfsson, which some of you have watched over on Weaving Words. That's something I'm trying to put into a book here coming up. It's out for editing right now. But that story I have designed around teaching heathen values and teaching my worldview in a large way to ingrain some of these things in the listener. Great for kids because they can hear these stories and see these things at play, and then as they get older and hear them again and again, they begin to understand some of these nuanced elements. And then as an adult, they can go back and look at this great story that they loved as a kid and see, oh, this is all about the Norns. This is cool. And suddenly want to study more about the Norns. It's not like I break down into minutiae my section on the Norns and how I see them, but it creates an image that sticks with the mind, and it's something that may pull them back to do their own research and their own thinking about in the future. So storytelling is a great way to do that. One of the key elements to heathenry is family. It is tribe. I count a good heathen as someone who keeps with the gods and goddesses, who keeps troth with the gods and goddesses, who does their bloats, who does ritual, who maintains that relationship and that gift cycle with the gods and goddesses. Someone who honors their ancestors, reveres their ancestors. Someone who maintains a relationship with the Vetir of the land and those that tend to their Inengar and their folk. So that last piece is very important. When we do ritual for I say festival because our holy tides we do as a festival. It is a celebration of what we are gathering to do blot for the season, for the change of season, like winter nights. Winter nights we do blot to Odin, and we do games and things like that. It's late harvest season, preparing for winter, preparing for the change of season. And so I love to work in a lot of those fall fest kind of elements. The entire festival itself is a ritual. It is dedicated to the god or goddess, or the gods and goddesses that we are honoring in the ritual part, the bloat part of festival. The rest of the festival is celebration in their names. It is celebrating folk, it is celebrating family, it is celebrating the tribe, and it is celebrating our relationship with the divine. So yes, the meat and potatoes of the ritual aspect is in bloat, but all of that is dedicated to them. So when we gather folk out and we do blot to Iduna at what we call Livka, what others call Ostra, and or Easter if you're more of the Anglo-Saxon bent. We work in games, because we'll do egg games where you throw the egg as high as you can and try to catch it without breaking it. The person that can throw it the highest wins that game. It begets luck. We do egg races. We'll do egg hunts, things like that. Do great big egg fights at the end where everybody just pegs each other with eggs because eggs are for luck. And the kids love this stuff. It gets them engaged and they want to come to festival. They may not necessarily want to come to ritual, but they want to come to festival. And by coming to festival and by seeing all of this, seeing the family, seeing the involvement, being part of the cookout, the storytelling, the games, they want to come back. They want to come back and see more. And the more they come back and see, the more they learn, whether they realize they're learning it or not. It's fun, it's engaging, and they enjoy it. We get the boffer weapons out, which if you're not familiar with boffer weapons are, it's a reenactment tool. It's a toy, but it's a tool used by a lot of sword fighters, martial artists, reenactors. And it's pretty much essentially PVC core with foam swim noodles put on them and bound together with like fabric and frequently athletic tape to give like a hand grip and stuff like that. And you model them after different weapons to give it the the feel of hitting each other with a sword, but it's something that you can smack each other with and it's not going to hurt. Well, if you make them right, it's not going to hurt. And as long as they don't hit them with like 100% force, they're really meant for about 30% force, but whatever. Again, maturity level of the kids, whether or not they're able to handle it. Some of the younger kids want to get out there and swing the swords, but they're not very cognizant of their power, and so they'll end up crying in a couple of minutes. Okay, we'll pull them away. We'll move on to something else. But we've played boffer weapons. We get the throwing axes out, the bow and arrow, throwing knives, things like that for those kids that can handle being around weapons. It's a great way for them to engage, work on accuracy, physicality, and it's something they enjoy doing. We've done paintball stuff. Winter nights in the past, we have done, because Ridgar, we like to hunt, and so some of our games in the past have focused around that, because sometimes we'll also do Blote Ullr or Skadi to bless the hunt for the coming season. And so doing a mock hunt was a lot of fun. We had the kids get out and we loaded them up with paintball guns, and then the adults in the tribe put a bucket of deer corn out in the middle of this little wooded area, and we would dart in and try to grab the corn and get away before the kids could pelt us with paintball guns. Lots of fun. We enjoyed it very much. Another one that we did, also centering around that kind of an avenue, was one midsummer. We did kind of a reenactment, a Beowulf type thing, but with airsoft guns. And so we would get the airsoft guns, and then our then chieftain Mike, big Jotun-blooded son of a gun, would get out there and strap on all of his protective gear and stuff, and then just wade out into them as they pelted him with pellet guns, airsoft guns. And he just had a blast, and the kids absolutely loved it. With the boffer weapons up at LATP, big heathen gathering that used to take place. It's not a thing anymore, but it was. It was really cool because there were like 250 heathens on a hill, and there were 50, 60 kids just running around having a blast. We'd bust out the boffer weapons and let them have a little war, and then the chieftains and Gothar would come out dressed as trolls and wade through this just sea of children that would just beat them to death with these boffer weapons. Lots of fun. Painting is a great thing. Like around Yule, we like to have the kids paint their own ornaments to go on the Yule tree. Cooking stuff is absolutely fantastic as well. If you want to have them engaged in preparing the feast, like making sweets, cookies, things like that. Face painting can be a lot of fun. All these kind of things that you would see at a fall festival or a fair, you can work into a festival. Those traditions grew up for a reason. They're fun, they're engaging, it's something for the kids to do, it's something that they enjoy. I like to make sure that they have a little something that they can take away from the ritual when I can, depending on the kids. The kids that we have working in our folk community right now are a little more on the mature side for the most part, and so the baubles and stuff are less of a thing for them because they're learning more the physicality. They very much love the games, but they're also more engaged in ritual itself, like actually participating in sambal and participating in the bloat. So they get a different element of it than, say, the 4 and 5-year-olds running around, where our focus is definitely on the games and the storytelling and the entertaining aspects of festival. Again, it's about being around heathenry happening. That's the key. If you try to drill into a child bloat too early on and try to grill them on this is how you do bloat, this is blah, 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 you're going to lose them for the most part. There will be some that are drawn to it, but for the most part, you're going to lose them. So, for those kids that are, definitely teach them everything they can learn. For those that are not, find other ways to garner their interest, keep them engaged, and they will have a blast with it. They love that kind of thing, and it's great for the tribe because it incorporates that next generation in a way that they wouldn't otherwise, and it gives them a place, a sense of belonging. So on sambal, we do our sambal as is fairly common in the Midwest with the 3 rounds. I know it's not a historically accurate necessarily historically accurate way of doing sambal based on the recon element of things, but as an effective ritual, this works for us and we like it. We like the way that it works and the engagement of it. A lot of times when we have kids involved, it's traditional to use like mead or wine or ale or something in the horn, but it's not a must. The liquid that you put into the horn is about carrying those energies. It's a symbolic well of weird, and it's sharing energy, sharing weird with one another, creating anchor points in weird, setting memories in the well. And so you don't have to use ale or mead. You can use apple juice. You can use water if you have nothing else. I like to use like apple cider or something like that when we've got kids going on, because it's something that they can drink and participate in. And the important part is they're making the toasts. They're making the involved actions. They're genuinely being a part of sambal. And again, it's about the maturity level of the kids. There's some that aren't really capable of maintaining focus that long. They get bored, etc., etc. They'll fall asleep while sambal's going around, because we usually do it late in the festival. We open with our bloat, do all of our games and activities and stuff, and then we'll close with sambal. So by then the kids are usually fading. But even then, sometimes they just like to sit and listen to the adults because they want to be a part. They want to be involved. That's the one thing that I find more true than anything else, is that kids want to be involved. And if you involve them, make it inviting and make it home, they want to be there. They want to be a part of it. So you can use something like apple cider to substitute for the ale, unless, of course, your kids are old enough or the parents are of a mind to allow the child to have a sip of wine or mead. To each their own, not my hall, not my call. I have had parents in sambal that chose to let their kids drink from the horn for ritual purposes, for religious purposes, and that was fine. I've had others that prefer that they not. We also typically have a secondary horn that is a water horn, ale horn, water horn, cider horn, that is for those that choose not to drink, so as not to put unnecessary pressure on them. Similarly, when we've got like heathens that are in recovery or in other ways can't drink or choose not to drink, sometimes we'll substitute the substance in the horn for something that they can utilize, that they can be a part of, because it's about inclusion. It's about the folk. It's about the tribe. It's not about necessarily what's in the horn. So it varies depending on the individuals involved. So very much so the same for children. You modify that to accommodate the kids, and then they can be involved. They can be a part of this ritual, be a part of this practice with the family, and it gives them a sense of belonging and a wonderful way to teach them how we do what we do. So the big takeaway on all of this is, yes, definitely involve your kids in ritual. Get them involved at an early age, and find the things that are appropriate to their level of maturity. You know, if they're not down with, sitting still long enough to do bloat or sambal, they can still put together bird feeders, and they can still give gifts to the Vatir. They can still make cookies. They can make raven cutouts that will then be sacrificed in the fire to Odin. They can paint runes, and it's a great way to start teaching them runes and stuff like that. Have them paint runes on rocks and things like that to hide about the Vey. All these kind of things you can teach them, you can engage them in. So it was a little odd for me when I got the question, how do you involve kids in ritual? Because we've just always done it. It's just naturally, hey, the kids are here, they're part of the tribe, they're part of the folk. Bring them in. It's just like with animals. If you're doing a ritual and one of the household animals wanders through your hall, whatever, and it's in the middle of a ritual and all of a sudden there's a cat walking across that table, that's not necessarily a bad thing. They're part of the spirit. They're part of the tribe. And so, yeah, absolutely. That's fine. There's no offense in a dog wandering in on Bloat Circle. It doesn't hurt a thing. Trust me, it's fine. The big thing is not to let it be a distraction. If a kid's getting disruptive in a ritual, then the parents will usually kind of redirect them and whatnot. Occasionally, very, very seldom, we've had parents that have had to step out of ritual because of an unruly kid that started screaming, crying, things like that. It's unfortunate, but it is part of the deal. It does happen sometimes. As those of you with kids know, it's chaotic, it's unpredictable. You never know what is going to go down. The big thing is not to let it bother you, not to let it disrupt. Just go with the flow. And the key thing there is whoever's running the ritual needs to understand who they have involved and then work with that. Before I wrap up, there is one thing I want to touch on. It's going to be a little bit longer video, but in involving kids in ritual, I have known some tribes to do what I feel is a fantastic practice, and that is children's bloat, where they go through and the kids actually run the bloat. The ones that are interested in it, the ones that are a little more mature. I usually see this in the 8 to 10 range, 8 to 13, where the kids have learned these mechanics and maybe on the cusp of beginning to understand a little bit of the why, but you give them the ability to practice it, to actually do it. Now, the efficacy of this bloat, because they don't necessarily understand the channeling of energies to the divine, things like that, it's questionable as to whether or not it's fully effective. But if they're working alongside someone who can guide them through the motions and make sure the mechanics are right, they can facilitate that to give it the oomph that it needs to be a good ritual. And I've seen some absolutely fantastic rituals come out of 9 and 10-year-old kids doing this with their own spin, their own telling of the stories, this glee that they get because they're doing something, they're contributing something meaningful, and it's incredibly powerful. So yes, absolutely, involve your kids, involve them early, and keep them engaged, keep them having fun. As long as they're having fun, they'll keep coming back to it. If you lose track of that and you try to make it about the mechanics and try to make it about the school learning and things like that, you're gonna lose them. So that's pretty much my take on children in ritual. It's something I can go on about for a long time. There's also the elements of rites of passage and things like that that are very important, and something we need to continue to work on as heathens going forward is reincorporating rites of passage. But that's something I'll come back to in another video. If I haven't already done that one, I got to go back and look at my playlist. We're at 52 episodes at this point, so I can't always keep straight what subjects I've hit and which ones I haven't. And then a lot of times I'll be like, I'm going to come back to this in a future video, and then completely forget about it. Got a lot on my mind. But anyway, give me some feedback. Let me know what you guys think. How do you involve kids in ritual? What are the cool things that you guys do? Hit me up on Word Weaver Productions on Facebook. Jump in the conversation and let's talk some. Let me know what you guys do, what kind of entertaining things help keep the kids involved, and what you find to be effective. You never know. You may help some other heathen parent out there find that one little thing that helps get their kid into heathenry and keeps them there for future generations, because it is very much a generational thing. It's very much a culture thing. We exist in a world where it's not the predominant culture anymore, and we have to work harder to instill our cultural values and beliefs upon children, because they're not going to get it from the general population anymore. Back in the day, that was it. It's just how things were. So they were, inundated with it from an early age, and it was just the norm. It's not the norm anymore. It's the norm for us, but it's not necessarily the norm for the outside world. So you're going to be juggling influences from pop culture, from media, and very much so from their friends, especially in those teenage years. The word of a friend, because all of a sudden they understand peer pressure, or they experience peer pressure where they hadn't before, at least on the level that they can as teenagers. They're going to get that whole, it's not cool to be religious, it's not cool to do what your parents do kind of thing. So the more you can kind of lay the groundwork before then, the more likely you are to survive that particular transition in their lives. So again, hit me up, give me some feedback, let me know what you guys think. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, give it a like down below. Remember to subscribe and ding the bell. And I look forward to seeing you guys in the future. Hail, may your ancestors smile on you.